Hi, this is John Schmitz with the Do Something Indie Show, and I have yet another special guest. I know you get tired of hearing about this, but this guy, I'm a big fan of this guy's music, and I'm really a big fan of what he's trying to do in our community, and some of the things that he's already done. He's put in some heavy lifting on a lot of the issues that we're having to this day. So, George, give me a little bit of background of where you've been, what you do, and you know what people want to know about you.
Well, I'm George Middleton. John, thanks for having me on your show, man.
Appreciate it.
I'm a therapist, a musician, and I'm an author promoting a series of works addressing the race construct, race ideology, from a mental health perspective. And I'm using that perspective, that approach, because it's more effective in having conversation and in inducing behavioral change.
Yeah, and I was looking at your credentials, and you know, there's a sort of a debate going on right now. Is college worth it? Mm-hmm. And as we both have some paper, so I think it's worth it. But I'm starting to wonder on some of the things because I don't see that really transferring over to our community. I think there's a gap of people that feel like they're educated, and they're not really getting what they pay for. And that's why I think that your work that you've produced here is going to be essential in bridging that gap, not only with race, but with socioeconomics, right, with education, with all that stuff. So I think information is really important for folks to get educated, right?
I agree with you, man.
So let's go through your books here, and let's go through some of this stuff and see. Give me a background on each thing. It's got three books here that he has, and is this the first one that we?
That's the very first one.
Yep, and it's
Beliefs Limiting Authentic Cultural Knowledge.
And then when did you write this one?
Well, I did that. I was motivated, inspired to write that the day of the election results that brought in our new current administration.
Okay, so about 2016-ish.
Yes. And I want to preface everything by saying the things that I'm going to say may sound really strange to you, may sound strange to your audience, and I would just encourage you to be embraced by the unfamiliarity, because I'm definitely not trying to repeat the definition of insanity. And if it's in this situation with race, as important as it is right now, if it sounds familiar, if you've done it before, then you already know what you're going to get with that. So I'm coming from a totally different.
And you've come to the right place, because I am looking for new things. We want to look at all angles. I tell people, I'll talk to anybody. So and so will say, why did you talk to that person? Mm-hmm. Well, if I don't talk to that person, then I don't learn what's going on. I need to learn all sides so we can make a rational decision on things. Right. So this one was in 2016, and you can get all your books are on.
All my work is on Amazon.
And how would we look at that? I'll put a link up for that on Amazon. How do we
look for George Middleton?
George Middleton on Amazon.
This first book is BLACK is the acronym for short, but it's the acronym for Beliefs Limiting Authentic Cultural Knowledge, and it's not about the color black. It's about the beliefs in color, both black and white.
It's the mindset behind the color. I got that. And then we have racism, a disease, and how to cure it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you wrote this one.
So that was about a year and a half later.
Okay.
And the premise behind this book is it's coming from a purely clinical model where I describe racism as a mental disorder. Describe the criteria that would make it that would classify it as that, and then I've also prescribed the intervention for how to address that. So it describes the problem, but it also has the solution.
Right, and that's what, in fact, today when you posted on Facebook, I put on there, we need solutions.
Exactly.
And you were back with about 10 seconds on me, hey, I got some solutions. So we have a lot of people that complain these days. We have a lot of people that'll tell you what's wrong, but I don't see the solutions. And honestly, I don't see a lot of people willing to apply solutions. I think some folks are just happy with the fight. I mean, I think they just like the fighting. Now, this is your newest one. This is the
This
one
is
that,
the most recent one.
Yeah.
And usually you need to be able to at least have gone through this book to really be ready for that.
okay,
book.
so your first, actually get them all three. They're not real long reads. They look like they're,
Well, they're workbooks, and they're
Okay.
not really meant to sit down and just kick a couple hours
Right.
to read. They're meant to be resources,
okay,
and they're going to hit you differently at different stages in your life.
right.
Because
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a variety of activities, and when you get in there, when you start looking in the book, one area may resonate with you at this point in your life, and then a few weeks later or a year later. So it's meant to be as a working, living document resource to address things.
Yeah,
that
and
come
this
up.
one's called "Can You Be American and a Color Too?"
Right.
And and you have seminars to back. You know, you have a
That's
seminar
correct.
that
Yes.
you can have. It looks like 30 or 50 or 60 people that you can come in and you can
Mm-hmm.
help with that. So give me what that looks like. Say I got 30 people that we want to have a come to Jesus meeting about racism, right? So is that pretty accurate? I'd call you.
You definitely would.
Yeah,
You
okay.
definitely would. So,
Yeah, walk me through that. Sell me on why I should have my
Okay.
30 friends come listen to
Right.
you.
Well, the process is more productive because I'm using evidence-based therapeutic strategies to address a mindset. So here in Marion County, the City County Council has declared racism a public health crisis. So racism is not like the coronavirus. You know, I can't hang around you too close. And,
Hey, I might get it from you
and
today,
get-
Jordan. I don't know.
It's exactly. It's not
Okay,
like it's
all
not
right.
like that. You know, social distancing, PPE equipment, stay at home orders is not what is going to solve the public health crisis of racism. This is the work that will solve that, because racism is a virus of ideology. It's how you think. And what's happening is when people are trying to address racism, they're addressing it as if it's their problem. If they would stop doing that, if they would just pass the right law, if they would just have the right training, right? So it gets you off the hook. I don't have a problem.
Yeah, I'm not the guy.
I'm not the one. But if we have this training, then they'll be okay and I'll be all right.
Yeah, and as we talked before we did the interview, I said, you know, when we talk about my people and your people, I said,
Right.
we don't represent our people, but people will put you in that, well, what do your people think?
Right.
And, you know, it's like, and I catch it, you know, trying to be in the middle. I joked around. I said, well, I'm with George, Middleton. He's in the middle. He's got middle in his name. And being in the middle is tricky because what happens is the people that are on this side don't like you because you're not with them, and the people on this side don't like you.
Right.
So you become enemies on both sides. And I have a saying, meet me in the middle. And I would say, let's meet us in the middle. And what do you think gets people, why do you think people are cautious or afraid to talk to somebody that doesn't look like them? What is your, and then I'll give you my take on it, of course. But
Well, it all starts from race ideology. The belief system that occurs just under your conscious awareness. So you're not thinking consciously, there's that white guy or there's that black guy. That's not what's going on consciously in your brain. But subconsciously, you've already programmed what that color means to you.
yes.
So you're on automatic pilot now, and you don't mean anything by it. You're not in. Most of us, there are in our country a small percentage of conscious racists, people who wake up in the morning and say, "I am going to purposely,
I'm gonna go burn something."
intentionally look to do harm to someone because I do not believe they should be in this country." Okay, but the majority of the issues are with good church-going people, moral people, people that are good neighbors, people that are good friends, but they have these belief systems that are working against their stated values.
Yeah,
and
and
that's where the problem is.
And I think one of the examples is that I wasn't aware of until I started hanging around with more black people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just this morning on our call, Kendall Johnson was worried because the sheriff was following him, today, and he's like, I put my hands on the wheel.
Right.
When I get pulled over, I worry about my insurance going up.
Right.
That's a perfect example. Or if I know people that they see a black person, they're going to be robbed. Or if a black person sees a white person, well, they're going to try and trick me. Or there's just those stereotypes of. And what I think is that what I find is we have to show each other some mercy and give each other the benefit of the doubt. But I bet you have more of a systematic way of being able to break that down.
Because you won't be able to do that effectively if you're not aware of your own racial beliefs.
Yeah. Amen.
So there's three primary components that contribute to racism and contribute to the racial stresses that you just described.
Well, do tell.
So the first one is the belief that race is biologically a valid concept. So if I ask the question, when I ask questions, there's no right or wrong, there's no judgment, there's no criticism, and you don't even have to answer it if you don't feel comfortable doing it. But from your perspective, is race real?
Yes, I mean.
Is it valid? Can you tell it through DNA and science, genetics and all that? Can you do that?
Yeah, I think so.
You can.
Well, I mean,
Well,
let's put it this way: I can't by the color of blood, I can't tell.
So that's what genetics is. Genetics is on a cellular level.
Okay. Well, you tricked me, George. That's not
Well,
fair.
no, because we're teaching.
I'm a good example of how you teach somebody.
Yeah, and so we're teaching. So there's the average American believes that race itself is a really valid, biologically sound concept, and it isn't.
Okay.
Number two, because of that first belief, the average American in this country believes that their identity is actually a skin color.
Yeah, I think that's looking in
Yes,
the mirror every day, and
And
I guess I never really thought of that.
And so they believe I'm white, they believe I'm black, without understanding where this ideology, where this social construct originated. And then the third aspect that contributes to that is those first two beliefs. The average American doesn't believe those first two beliefs have impact on the way they treat each other, on the way they write policy, create law, provide service, all those things that we do as a society to and with each other. They don't believe that those first two beliefs don't have an impact.
And they do. I mean, those two that are sort of unconscious make our conscious decisions.
Right.
Wow, that's a little deeper than we usually go on to do something indie show. But I'm telling you, that was like really cool. And I've talked to you before. I have a little bit of an advantage here to the audience, but you could just see right there the type of deep thought that George is being able to put into some of this work. And I would say that this would be beneficial to anyone that has an issue with race and bias. It sounds like there's a lot of subconscious bias that really needs to be brought out to the surface before we can get to the root of the problem. And
that brings up the point as to why diversity training, implicit bias training, anti-racism training, all those trainings are ineffective because it starts at step 2.
Right.
Rather than step 1.
Treating a symptom instead of the problem.
Exactly.
I mean, that is.
Because before you have a bias, you have to have a belief about it.
Yeah, and it's breaking those down. It's all like muscles. You got to break them down to make them strong.
Exactly.
And but we're going to go back to the square one on this: the willingness to be able to change and learn, the willingness to be open enough to say, hey, I might have a little bit of a problem with this, or I may not understand. But right now in our society, we see folks that are just, I think they want to build that wall. Yeah. We want to build that wall of hate, right. Because if I don't get to know that person, it's a lot easier to hate them. Yeah. And I can do it on my keyboard and not have to see them. Right. And, I can hurl my stuff out there. and here lately, Facebook is taking a lot of heat because it's like it's no fun anymore.
Right.
It's no fun.
They're losing advertising dollars and everything.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I really feel we are finally at a turning point where I would say both sides, I'd say minorities and white, it can be Hispanic, brown and white. Mm-hmm. We're at a crossroads where I think that there's enough on each side that we can get enough people in the middle to actually move the needle. I think it's time, and I don't know, we're similar in age, yeah. And I find myself more like-minded with people of the same age than I do of the same skin color or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's what's really been enlightening to me is like, we don't think that much differently. Right. And we're fighting the same enemy. And sometimes it's ourselves. And if we can get to the point where we can sit down and listen to each other without screaming and hollering and name calling and just listen to each other.
Well, I would like to caution the listening audience that with what you said a minute ago, which is we're at this time, this critical point. We've been at this critical point many times before. I don't look at it as a critical point. I look at it as an opportunity. Right? However, it could be an opportunity to do it differently or an opportunity to repeat the same I'm sorry's, apologies. Let's throw some money at it. Let's do the regular training and check it off the box. We have the opportunity to do one or the other. So that's where I'm feeling the challenge for me is personal because I've created this concept, I've created this work. So now it's time for George Middleton to put up or shut up. Right?
Well, and I think that this is the time of the opportunity is to do that, and that's why I'm sort of making a pretty good push to get to bridge the gaps, mm-hmm. And to get folks talking to each other. And
yes.
Yes. Talking's one thing. I go to a lot of meetings where they're not talking, but I'm a do something guy. Right. That's why this show's do something, and I know you are too.
I love it.
And a lot of times, you're a musician and a darn good one. I mean, I remember, I just tell a quick story about coming down to the Jazz Kitchen to see you play, and I got last minute tickets. And we got, let's put it this way, we got put at a table where me and my wife were the only white folk there.
It was just you guys.
But we had such a great time, and I knew we would. I mean, I knew that. And what was really funny is there was no table 13 there, and I was 13 on Friday the 13th. And I said, hey, make us a 13 table. So they made a little table for two up in the front, number 13. And but there was a little bachelor party, I think a bachelorette or a girls' night out.
Mm-hmm, sure was.
And I got to talking to one of the ladies there. And she, they were having fun, we were laughing, and she was just sort of, somebody had taken her joy. Well, I got to talking to her, and her 18-year-old son had been gunned down at 16th in college. Now, it wasn't by the police or anything, but it was and he was an honor student, and you may have heard about this story. It's been about 4 or 5 years ago now, and I could, her pain was, I could feel it. Yeah. And it just really touched me with, what, there's people out there that are really struggling with things, and it doesn't, what happened to her son obviously is happening to a lot of kids right now, more than 5 years ago. So this is urgent. I think as I say, we're about the same age. I feel like I got to do at least one more good thing before I close my eyes for good. And we're going around and we're talking to people that are interested, and I'm going to connect you with some more people that are like-minded, and you're going to do some pep talking for them. I'm going to do some pep talking because there's a lot of folks that don't want to get involved. It's like. Yes. But we got to get in the game. It's time to get in the game.
Well, they don't know what to do. It's scary. Mm-hmm. When you mentioned earlier, why are people so averse to talking or reaching across the other side? Because race ideology thrives on emotion. And the more emotion that you can accompany with the knowledge or the information you're trying to get a person to believe, then the more entrenched that belief becomes, in their mind about race. So and negative emotion is much more
It's powerful. It's
than positive emotion.
Yeah.
So if your introduction to race was being called the N-word, or being quote unquote white and getting beat up by a bunch of black guys, right? Those becomes emotional events that are seared into your brain, and it could have happened when you were 7, 8, 9, or 10. It's not even conscious anymore.
Right, it's
but
just
it's
there.
just knee jerk.
Yeah, it's just there.
Yeah.
And I did notice going to meetings with black people, and that the emotions can get high.
Yes.
I mean, and I go to a lot of old white people like me, and it's like they sit there and like, when are we
They
going to
wanna
sing the
stuff it.
hymns?
Yeah.
When are we,
Yeah.
But it's just, and I enjoy the emotion part. I want to get it out. But I see some people that sit there, they just won't say anything until they get on Facebook. Then they're wide open. But for the most part, I think some people are afraid to say the wrong thing.
Right.
I mean, if we're sitting here, I'm conscious on, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to make George mad and say the wrong thing. And and if you were to say the wrong thing to me, I would it wouldn't bother me. It wouldn't bother me because I'm not. It's just not worth it.
But as long as you're in the race paradigm, everything you say is going to be wrong.
Oh yeah, because
It's already a faulty paradigm. What we're doing, what the country has done, I would even say globally, is we've taken a rational concept, totally irrational, and have pretended that it makes all the sense in the world.
yeah. In other words, a program that sounds great but doesn't work.
Does not work.
It doesn't work.
So I mean, just listen to the rationality that based purely on my skin color and your skin color.
I'm not that far off.
That somehow you're different from me internally. Your mindset, your skill set, your intelligence, based purely on the difference there.
And I would
It's
call
committed.
myself ignorant and closed-minded. And I know you and you know me.
Yeah.
And we're a lot more like-minded than
Right.
people might say. I mean, we're both educated in psychology, and we love studying people,
Yes.
and we're about the same age, and we've had a lifetime of experience.
You're just a little bit better than looking at me, but
Oh, come on, George! You're just trying to be nice now. So that's all right.
But that's how irrational race ideology is, and people have internalized an irrational system, and then try to make solutions based on
that.
irrationality.
Yeah.
So that's when you get terms that I call racial oxymorons. When people say things like racial unity. Race was meant to divide.
Right.
So you're trying to take a divisive concept and cram it into unity. Race relations, that's a great one. As race relations. The only kind of relationship you can have inside the race paradigm is that one is superior and one's inferior.
Right. So you have to relate them.
That's the only way.
So on the black agenda, so it has the black. So what you're saying is it should just be the agenda.
So,
or what do you think about that?
That's where it gets tricky, right? Because you got Black Lives Matter, you got the black agenda, you got all these things. The intention of what they're doing, 100%, 100%. The strategy is flawed.
Okay.
Because what you've done is you're trying to solve an irrational racial problem with a racial solution. And no matter how well intended you are, the minute I say a color on either side of the game, what's that going to make the opposite side do?
They're gonna,
Yeah, it's going to make them defensive.
Defensive.
If I say black radio, someone's going to say, well, what do you have black radio for? If I say Black Lives Matter, well, my color life matters too. I mean,
well, and we see
Right.
that. I mean,
So,
and
yeah.
then they use it as a wedge.
It's a wedge, right.
And so the first part of that is Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. But when somebody from Black Lives Matter wants to throw it onto somebody else,
Right.
and that with the tone, I think it's all
Right.
about tone. Would you not say it's about tone
It's tone, but it's also belief.
and the
right?
attitude, little attitude behind it?
It's primarily belief, because anytime
Okay.
you frame it as a color issue, there's going to be an automatic response in the
In
alternative.
the alternative. Yeah.
Automatically. And it can be done respectfully or it can be done disrespectfully. But the point is, if you say black, then white's got to come. If you say white, then black's got to come. There's no way around it. As well intended as you try to be.
So instead of a me thing on both sides, it needs to be a we thing. Is that,
Well, but
how do we get to the we
how do
thing,
you,
right?
it's
How do we get to
the we
there?
thing. Because here's the other aspect that sabotages our efforts. We're not all on the same page about the terms.
Oh, yeah.
We're throwing around terms like "you're racist" without any intelligence about what a racist really is, about what racism really is, right? We're just throwing these terms at each other, and I could say you're racist. Now you're going to be offended, but your interpretation of racist and mine are two different things.
Yeah, and I think that in our lifetimes, we've seen racists change
All over the place. Which is another strategic design that racism is intended to do.
divide.
It's set up so that no matter how well you try to be, you can't connect because it's like the Tower of Babylon. You're trying to build this tower, but everybody's speaking different languages.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I see it on every side. Like I said, I get it from both sides, and I'm sure you do too, because we have friends and all across the rainbow, and
Right.
it's like I think and one of the things I tell my white friends to say is I don't see color. That's not that ain't cool but in reality we really need to not see color. But that is one of the telltale things.
Well, I would flip that.
Okay.
We need to appreciate color for what it actually is.
Okay.
God made color. He made color for us to see. Colors have impact. When you watch a movie or you go to a performance, they have lights up there to.
Oh yeah. Otherwise we'd just be silhouettes, and who'd care?
and
That's pretty good.
And certain lights induce certain emotions. God made everything on us for a reason. But what we've done is we've perverted God's creation by putting our own understanding about
Yeah, it's like I say about theories, they're great until you add people.
So you can't not see color. That's not the goal, to not see color. The goal is
to respect and
use color in the way that it's appropriated for.
Yeah, and I would say in my personal life, I was the only white guy on a track team. That's another thing. If you're a white person, don't ever say I got a white friend.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I got a black friend, so I'm not racist or whatever. Because I lived at 42nd and Post back in the day, and that who cares?
Yeah. What does it really mean?
It really didn't mean anything. But when I really started going out and meeting with people where they are and finding out what that struggle really was. It really opened my eyes to somebody. I thought I was somebody that was pretty well versed in this situation. And that's when I started realizing that we have got to come together and we got to respect each other's culture, because there's an emotion. It's different, but it's a good different.
Yes.
It's a good difference. I just love learning the different cultures and cultural things and different things. And then I feel like I'm cool. Because I really feel like I know what's going on a little bit more, and I feel very comfortable. And,
when I'm listening to you, and I could be totally wrong, but when I'm listening to you, what I hear in you when you speak is there's this conflict between being considered white and being human.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because you are really working hard with a serious passion to bridge these gaps.
Yeah, and
that behavior is human. That's humanity. That's your humanity reaching out. And at the same time, you're experiencing these cognitive dissonances because you subconsciously identify as white. And white has these other negative things associated with it. So you're like, I'm doing all these things. I know I'm a white guy, but I'm doing these things. So you're always kind of naturally fighting with yourself. But it's the humanity that's really who you are.
I'm trying, and one of the things is I want to be a good example. I'm not just thinking of myself only, but I want others to see that, that what I'm trying to do. I mean, right, wrong, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to say the wrong things, but at the same time, I'm trying. And I would like for that. So I'm conscious about what others are going to see,
Right.
but I'm also, wanting to improve and invest in myself so that I can understand what's going on. And you're right, it's just in our whole, we've been
Right.
these colors for a long time,
Right,
and
right.
it's takes a minute to. I think most of it is just realization, and I think what you just said was very enlightening to me, because there is that conflict, because I don't, my people would say,
Right, right.
well, that he's just loves black people. What
Right.
you catch it, you just catch it from
no matter, because
it
because
is.
it's framed within race. So
Yeah.
one of the questions that I start off in each of my books to get people thinking along these lines is, I think I shared this with you earlier. Are you your color, or are you your culture? So when I ask you that, how does that question hit you? How does that question
Well,
strike you?
it's sort of like the psychology question: nature over nurture. What is our nature, and how are we raised? And I think I see a lot of the culture in both sides, and some of that is, a lot of it. Family is family.
Right.
That's something
Right.
that comes right across the
Across all
same
cultures.
same thing. But then you look at different, cultural traits.
Right.
They are different. If I were to go to a barbecue with your family,
Right.
it would be a lot different than I went with somebody down Greenwood. It just would be,
Totally
or that I've used the charity riders in Mars Hill is a different. And
Now, let me ask you that, because since you brought that up. So the barbecue is a good example. Are the differences in that barbecue in the hood versus the barbecue in Greenwood, is it because of skin color, or is it because of experiences?
well, the food is generally about the same. Really, but it is about the people that are there, the experiences of the people that are there,
Experiences, right.
and as people, we tend to draw ourselves to like people,
that's
and
right.
this is sort of in our minds is drawing us away from somebody that's like us. So, and I'm fortunate to have a great wife that, I say
Yeah.
we're going here.
Yeah,
She
she's awesome.
she goes, and
She's ready to go.
and she is so.
She's a pistol.
Yeah, she's when this all was starting to go down with the riot, for the couple of weeks, I didn't want to go home. She was, she came from Arkansas, and they had,
yeah.
way worse than.
Yeah.
We got Martinsville and Green. We got some areas that had
Yeah.
Klan stuff, but that's far. This was just in the '80s.
Yeah.
Of they had an alternating black and white prom queen. They had Black Town. They had, they had all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
It was more overt there, and
oh yeah, it was. You knew.
You
It
knew.
wasn't subconscious in
Right,
that one.
no.
It was like here's your sign, and but like I said, we've seen a lot of things, and I like to say we have pre Archie Bunker and post Archie
Yeah,
Bunker.
yeah.
I know Archie Bunker, and I think that Archie Bunker had a big impact on my parents, because my parents. I never heard, my mom and dad had a pretty good mouth on them, but I never heard them talk anything bad about black people or other people. My dad made good Pollock jokes, which you don't hear anymore, but but we actually moved from 38th and Drexel because of white flight when I was in the mid 60s.
Yeah.
And I never heard a word, and they took a beating on their house because they waited, when the property, you know
Yes.
how I went.
Right.
I'm just,
Yeah.
it's just, and it's one of the systemic problems with home ownership and black. So to me, it's like, when I'm 6 years old, I don't realize that. But when I'm 60 years old, I look back on that and I think, what a shame.
Wow.
What a shame. And it's one of those things where, I think it's time for some serious changes. We've got a long history of bad stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that folks like us, we need to be leaders to our younger people to show them that, hey, the protests and all that, you got everybody's attention. And it's like my good buddy says, what happens when the dog catches the car?
Right.
Now we got to do
Now
something. Yeah. And that's why I like your solutions, and I like, I just like your demeanor. I like, I just like how you think on all this stuff. And I think that we get enough folks up there doing this the right way. I think we can make some headway. And like I said, before I close my eyes, I want to see some things get better.
Yeah,
And,
leave your mark.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that, about the statues and whatnot coming down, and I had a pretty lengthy post about the Garfield Park statue. And I'm not for tearing out, but that particular statue was marched around to keep black people off the South Side. To me, that is a symbol, not of Confederate soldiers that were brutally taken care of in our prison camp here during the Civil War, but it's a symbol of suppression and oppression. And I caught a lot of grief from that. Oh, we're going to tear all. No, but this one. How about just this one? We can do that.
So I've got a really off the beaten perspective about the tearing down the statues issue, the Confederate flag issue. While I understand from the identity of black, the offensiveness, the perceived offensiveness of these symbols, what those on the identity of black don't understand is that these are emotional symbols for people who identify as white. This isn't about, is it right, wrong, moral, immoral. That's not the point. The point is that these are experiences that they grew up with, that their early nurturing experiences was associated with people who had these symbols. So even though you might be right, the way that you go about it can cause more harm and take the focus off the goal than what you intended. So what you have now is you have two traumatized sides, further traumatizing each
Just
other.
gonna clash.
Right. So now when you tear down a symbol that has an emotional connection, again, I'm not talking about whether you agree with it or not.
Right.
I'm just talking about in terms of being effective. Because in life, typically you're presented with two choices. You can either be right or you can be effective.
We forgot the third, right and lonely.
Right. That's good. That's
middle.
usually a result of trying to be right.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Spoken like a good married man. So you can either be right or you can be effective. Very rarely can you be both.
Well, and I say that you're not going to ever change anybody's mind by telling them they're wrong or an idiot.
It's just not going to happen.
It's just not going to happen.
And if
but
you
you feel a little better because I told them,
Yeah, it feels good
for a minute, and then
but,
it's like,
but so for me, tearing down the statues is not the effective way. I would say the more effective way, if anybody was listening to me, is, okay, you have a symbol of that, put up another symbol that counters that symbol in the very same location, that tells a story, that educates. So instead of destroying it, erect something that tells the story, because that's what history is, it's telling the story. And now what you do, it still might make people angry, but nowhere near as angry as disrespecting, in their mind, their own history.
Yeah.
Because even though we may not agree, I still should respect you. Because in America, here's the thing about America. We have, and I got this off of Harrison Painter.
Okay, my buddy Harrison loves me. By
I
the
got
way.
this off of Harrison Painter, so I'm stealing off of him. I'm going to mess up his quote. But in America, it is our God-given right not to like each other.
Well,
He said it much more colorful.
Yeah,
than
but
that.
he's doing it to me.
So we have a right to not like each other for any reason we want. That's America.
Right.
Right? I mean, what good is it if your friendship is forced? George, I'm your friend because America says I have to be your friend.
Well, and we went through the busing
Yeah.
thing, and it is really funny because I went to Perry Meridian, and I was about 2 years before they actually started busing, and I have interviewed 2 or 3 people that went to Perry Meridian that were black, but they would have never gone there, and if they weren't Winnie Jenkins and
Right.
the guy on Channel 6, he was one of the, and I'm like, I'm just,
Yeah.
and it's you talk about, how you can recognize somebody. I can recognize somebody by their education. I can tell almost exactly what high school they came from.
Wow.
Just from that. Now Wendy tricked me because I didn't know that, but I could tell when I did Erica for the Indy 10. I knew she was either North Central or Pike just by just by her education and
Interesting.
and she's sort of conflicted with things right now because she sees what this movement is, an opportunity, and now she's looking for that solution. And you got all these people pulling your way. Well, you don't want to go talk to so and so, and you don't want to go do that.
Right.
You don't want to do that. And I see a lot of that shaming. You know, I get shamed. I'm sure you get shamed by, you talk to John. Or I'll probably get shamed. You talk to George. Well, I probably won't because you're super cool. But you know what I'm saying? It's like people
do that.
People do that, and
By association.
they want to build themselves up and all that. But my thing about going back to the monuments, it's like me and my wife were talking about last night. If you look at anything that I have ever started or done, my name is not associated with any. Like Mars Hill Art Center, you don't see John Schmidt's on there anywhere. My companies, I've never had a company with John Schmidt's anything. I've never had. I just don't put it on there because I really think you worship yourself as an idol when you start doing that. I mean, no offense to anybody that's got a road named after them or whatever.
Right.
God bless you. That's great.
This works with your values.
That's just how I want to be. I just don't. So to me, when a statue gets torn down or doesn't get, it's just a monument that it's not as important as one person's emotion.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at that. And I looked at that going back a little biblical about the Pharisees. They threw away Jesus for the law.
Right.
And do we throw away other people because of a rule or whatever? Right. Granted, if they're using that in a bad way or with malice, we got to look at that. But at the same time, man, you're more important than any physical thing around here. But I think a lot of people,
But it's hard. It's hard to operate from that paradigm when you believe you are a certain identity.
Yep.
When you believe that. So one of the themes of conversation that comes up whenever we're dealing with race, some people will say, well, if you just follow Jesus, and treat everybody as human and as equal, then the problems will go away. And I say that's well intended.
Application.
But history says it's not so. History says that isn't so, because racism, ISM, that suffix ISM, refers to a systemic, operationalized practice of that ideology. Okay, so that means it doesn't matter who's working in that organization, the policies and procedures and practices support racism, and you can be totally against it,
but you're still in it.
You're still in it. So in the system of church, you still have the most segregated day of the week. It still happens in 2020.
Oh yeah.
You still have a label of white Christians and black Christians. Religion, Christianity has allowed race to permeate its ideology.
Yeah, I think there's even something out right now where they're trying to say that we're trying to get rid of the white Jesus, which has been sort of one of those. It's been a marketing thing for years.
Exactly.
It's like here we have a guy that was a Jew in the Middle East, probably not going to be white, not going to be white, and by our readings in the Scripture, not really the most attractive guy. Not a David,
not a stud. But that's the irrationality again that seeps in all of these systemic areas. Education, law enforcement, that's another hot topic. Politics. I mean, politics is glaring, and that's all emotion based, because now you have the political ideology intensified by race ideology, but you're talking through politics not realizing that it's really about race.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's like you hear, I want to get the black vote, or I want to get this, the Jewish, or and it's just crazy.
So it's irrational, man.
Yeah, it is.
It's irrational, and we're so emotionally swept up that my father, who didn't graduate from high school, but I consider the smartest man in the world, said, never make important decisions in emotion.
Yeah. Take a couple breaths, maybe a day, right?
Because you literally cannot be objective and be emotional at the same time. Your chances are you're not going to make effective decisions based in emotion. So whenever you start to get angry or mad, that's not the time to go vote or to go get in a car or to do anything important.
And I think that's part of the issues we have right now with the shootings and whatnot. I mean, I think a lot of folks I need a gun for protection, and they're the ones that end up shooting somebody.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, because,
Right.
and,
Yeah.
you know, it's,
You haven't checked yourself.
yeah, and, but, oh, I got this, but, you know, and then they don't got this, and then
They
bad
got
thing,
you.
yeah, it's, so, man, I tell you what, we covered a few bases,
Yeah, we did.
and I love having conversations with you, George.
This
It's
is
just
awesome.
always, you know, I always learn something when I talk to you, and I'm going to post your stuff up here so people can get involved, and if you want to have George come out and do some instruction on he's going to open up some horizons for you and open up some doors that you probably never thought about. So if you're meek about this and you're not serious, don't call this guy. You call Ghostbusters or something, but this guy right here, he's going to make sure that you
I
get,
can guarantee you that it will draw you in. It will not make you feel threatened. It will challenge the way you think. And it's not about blaming or shaming or finger pointing.
I like that. I like that. Well, George, I thank you much. Still social
brother.
distancing
Yes, sir.
somewhat.
Yes, sir.
But you got a lovely home here. I thank you for having me in.
My pleasure.
All right.
All right, man.